Good afternoon and good evening to our international community, and thank you for taking time to join us this very nice day, I hope, where you are, to talk about our next topic in our series, Together We Thrive, our micro-webinar series. Without further ado, I'm going to pass this over to Annie, and she'll introduce both our speakers and our topic for today.
Thanks, Jess. So hi, everyone, and welcome to kind of our fourth micro-webinar of a series called Together We Thrive. Today, we're joined by Dan Comboy, Managing Director at Statement, Robin Smith, CEO and co-founder at VL OMNI, and Julia Jackal, CEO and co-founder at Creative971. And I'm your host, Annie Schoen, Partner Manager at Shopify Plus. So COVID-19 has changed what people buy, how they like to buy, where they buy it. So as physical shops start to ease and open up, what will we keep from COVID-19? Dan, should we start with you and get you to share some of your thoughts on that? I think you're on mute though. There you go.
It's the standard. That's one thing we'll keep from COVID. Everyone will have the phrase "you're on mute," which is, I think, is
100%.
Yeah, so obviously it's been an incredibly unusual time, but I think certainly it's been a time for people to be reflecting on kind of how the world has changed and how retail has changed in the last few months. I think people have got past the initial shockwaves of kind of how to adapt and have now started to implement some tactics. I think in terms of what we're seeing from our client base in terms of the things that perhaps they're going to make more permanent as changes. I think very much is there's a recognition that certainly in the UK, we've seen a significant increase in the percentage of retail sales that are transacted online versus the same time last year. So the data that I saw from last month's trading, for example, in June, was that year on year, the percentage of retail sales has gone from around 18% to around 30%. So, you know, that's a huge transformation in terms of that percentage of spend from other channels onto online. It's really accelerated a trend that has been happening for some years, but similar has been seen, in North America, I'm sure. And I guess what that means is that people's investment decisions and where they're actually placing investment is changing. So what we're finding is when we're talking to retailers who have got estates of physical stores, they may not be investing the same in the stores as they would have been next year, and they may be investing more in online and in multi-channel to ensure that their online kind of channels are optimized. So I think redistribution of budgets is probably one thing, and it feels like that's not going to change. I think there was an initial view that perhaps that might be a temporary thing. Looking more medium term now, that feels like something that is going to be a bit more permanent. And of course, that's for us as e-commerce partners to be in a good place to strategically advise clients and to support the implementation of those initiatives as well.
Totally. And I was listening to Shopify's earnings call this morning at 8:30 for me, and one of the things that Harley said was kind of everything that's happened this year has really pushed what we expected to happen in 2030 to this year. So it's really kind of accelerated everything in terms of e-commerce and everyone's expectations. So that's been really interesting. Robin, would you like to kind of add to anything, any of your thoughts onto our topic today? Robin might be up north, so if we don't hear from you, Robin, I'm going to actually just ask Julia to share her thoughts first. Julia, do you want to add to our topic?
Yeah, Annie, I would love to. I think Robin was on mute because I saw his lips moving.
Oh, okay. I couldn't see him. Sorry, Robin.
No problem. So I'll let Robin go ahead. Any other you announced him first, so I'll leave it to him. So I'll let him start.
Okay, I'm on unmute. Yeah, my lips were flapping. Thanks, Julia. Yeah, no, I'm out in rural Quebec right now, and I've got a satellite internet connection, so it's a little bit flaky sometimes. I think what Dan highlighted for the UK is exactly what we're seeing in Canada. Record number of bricks and mortar retail outlets closing, and those companies reorienting their whole structure and their organizations, both on the back end on the supply chain towards e-commerce. I think, to your point, Annie, what Harley highlighted, that we're at 2030 in terms of e-commerce, I think shows in, not only in Shopify's numbers, but Stats Canada last week put out the first and second quarter e-commerce growth, and it's something in the order of around 92%. So that's year over year. So the impact of COVID, I don't think is going to change much in terms of e-commerce, other than to really accelerate it and to force companies to focus more seriously on the orientation. Bricks and mortar is going to be rethought. I think we're going to see smaller footprints, and they're going to be tied into a much more holistic e-commerce experience. So I'll pass it to Julia.
Awesome.
All right, thanks, guys. So yeah, actually, I think it's the same over here. I can just feel like as if Dan or Robin is sitting with me here in Dubai. It's across boards, I think, the same story. What we've been seeing in the UAE predominantly is not so many stores have closed, I would say, yet. I mean, we don't know. There's a lot of bigger retail groups that host a lot of sub-brands. So the division or the structure is a bit different as in other parts of the world, I would say. So we have, let's say, one retail group owning, for example, up to 100 brands, right? And those are all small to medium or even large scale brands. So those groups will, of course, maintain and make sure to have their structure set properly. So what we see a lot of times is having a great impact here is multi-brand stores. So, you know, those retailers decide, okay, we're having a big a multi-brand store, working together, combining forces rather than for each and every separate brand opening an e-commerce. Because here we still see, like COVID or not, that the e-commerce search volume, if you're looking at Shopify alone or at Shopify Plus, is extremely low compared, let's say, I think then in the UK, you guys have exorbitant, amazing numbers when you even hit up Shopify in Google, right? But here in the UAE, it's not the case. So e-commerce itself is a topic that, you know, was on the merge. I think we have, I don't know by numbers, to be honest, but I'm sure it has amounted to a larger push, because companies were seeing whether it's, I mean, you know, whether it's examples on a global scale that during the lockdown, there was physically no way, you know, to sell. So they had to jump and make things move. There's one retail group in the UAE that has been pushed through and has over succeeded. Actually, they have already reached their 2025 e-commerce goals. Now, of course, what I see, or what we're seeing here over in the UAE, is a lot of more DIY has pushed through. So there is a lot of more diversification of the whole awareness of talking about e-commerce, and everyone wants to individualize themselves, which wasn't as much of a topic here before. I think COVID has brought that, or actually COVID, like the situation has brought that a bit more clear, that not only as an individual merchant fulfilling your passion, for example, you can definitely success. So moving together while being more far away, I think is the key words we had seen here. So like us here, right? We're coming from so many different parts of the world, each of us looking in the screen, but we're delivering something together, and also the topic Together We Thrive. I think from what we've seen, COVID taught us that a lot of meetings could be avoided, just making it more efficient, you know, making things lean, making things more human, like full of emotions, more trust, you know, working with networks, working with people where you really feel, hey, these guys are really in for me, you know, not just for the numbers. And I just felt that though it separated us in physical ways, it kind of united us in digital ways. And yeah, so the same across boards we're seeing here in the UAE.
Yeah, it's a lot of it. It's also just about kind of building trust without having any physical aspect to it. I think, I think every industry is kind of experiencing it, and like we can kind of go down many roads with kind of the impact of kind of this pandemic and the changes that it'll bring it. We can look at, laws that were implemented and how that influences what any business owner can do. For example, let's say with restaurants, patios are the only thing that's open here in Canada, let's say, and probably everyone's investing in patio furniture and wooden decks, to put your patrons, and a lot of like outdoor, maybe like patio dining sets and things like that. So I think that also impacts like what people want to buy, and that might not be permanent. That might be just temporary. It gets really cold in Canada, so once we hit like October and November, we're all gonna have to go back inside. But there are other aspects that I think, we touched on this a couple of times, definitely in our previous webinar series, but it's all about kind of like building that loyalty and being able to communicate without having to physically see anybody. So I think with that being said, for you guys, and this is kind of like free for all, if you guys anyone wants to chime in, are there any like really interesting, like surprising online experiences that you've seen this year that has kind of like surpassed your expectations? Like, for example, for me, like it makes a lot of sense for me, actually. I never mind paying the $50, here at IKEA. Like, you pay $50, you get everything shipped to your house. And it made a lot of sense to me because it's a lot of furniture you usually order in bulk. But now, as you're, at home and you spend so much time in the kitchen, there's not much else to do and you want to order something here and there. I could not believe that IKEA's, the way that it's set up, that they cannot accommodate for any other shipping options. It's that $50 flat just to let's say ship like a wooden spatula and a mandolin to me, which made like no sense, which I think opens my world up to small business owners to buy from them instead of buying from IKEA. But are there any like positive online experiences that you guys have seen throughout this year?
Well, I think what you raise, Annie, is actually quite interesting. I'm in rural Quebec right now, and the village close by, there's a general store that's in the process of closing down. And I was talking to the owner yesterday afternoon, and he was saying that one of the biggest problems that they've got around here is internet service. So although e-commerce is thriving in urban areas, the minute you get out into rural areas, and Canada's a big country, I don't know whether internet constraints in the UAE or in the UK are going to be the same, but here, that's going to be a hindrance. And I think there's going to have to be a focus on internet infrastructure, because it's all very fine to be in an urban area, as you say, where I can access anything I want. Shopping online where I am right now is often like, if there's a thunderstorm, and there was a massive one here yesterday, I had no internet connection. So I think that's one of the aspects that I think that is going to have to be looked at as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I would say that there are also a lot of industries that popped up. I think, as we said, like the pandemic has really influenced what people want to buy. And I think, first and foremost, people wanted to make sure they were covered, right? Food and essentials, making sure that you're protected in the best way that you can. And we saw a lot of businesses starting to pop up, selling masks, selling different kinds of masks, selling different kinds of personal protective gear for yourself. So if you guys, and I don't mean to put you guys on the spot, but if you guys had any ideas of how, a brand that kind of like popped up and thrived during this time, how can they pivot to future-proof their business in the future going forward?
Yeah, I've got an example. I think there's some restaurant businesses that I think have adapted quite quickly. And there's a few examples local to me where very quickly they decided to do home delivery and realized that actually that could offer a great revenue stream. But it's really interesting that, they've perhaps experimented with a little bit of this in the past, but it had never been a core part of the business. And then through COVID, it was necessary to innovate really quickly. So using tools like Shopify were able to move quite swiftly and to implement a nice, seamless, user-friendly way for customers to be able to order. I think Robin and I spoke about this a few weeks ago. It's a case of actually what's going to happen now is that this is going to become a mainstream part of their business. And this is now when they're starting to see some of the pain points, because all of a sudden you've got to have the right logistics, you've got to have the right kind of team members. All of a sudden you've got to put in sustainable processes for running this type of business. And that's not something that these businesses have ever done before. So I kind of expect there'll be some conversations in Q4 and Q1 about, okay, this is working for me now. It's worked okay so far, but we've now hit this pain point. So I think that's really important. That is brilliant that people have been able to innovate and open up new revenue streams. But I think it's going to open up a new area of opportunity and challenge for merchants and for partners, in terms of how do we as technology partners and as retail partners help these new e-commerce entrepreneurs to navigate through and be successful at scale, I guess.
Yeah, a lot of them are doing it for the first time, and they're asking us, what should we do? How should we do it? How easy it is? How fast can we do it? And I would say we're kind of doing it for the first time too, but hopefully we can take some of the knowledge that and the experience that we have with businesses that have been online for a while and apply that in a way that makes sense for these entrepreneurs or these business owners that want to go online for the first time. Awesome. And I would say kind of like the last thing I would add to this topic is what are some, just in your experiences, what are kind of some technologies that have really kind of helped the brands that you guys work with really kind of survive and thrive this whole pandemic?
Well, maybe I can just jump in from our side, just also to give a nudge on what you said before. For us, it's prominently restaurants and, funny enough, cinemas as well, like businesses that are not usually the type of prone e-commerce businesses that really have a win on that, and obviously groceries and pharmacies. But I think a good like technologies or software, what we're seeing is thriving here more and more is anything connected to social media. So social media, ad tools, online shopping, social galleries that can be back combined. And as Robin said earlier as well, it's much more of a holistic e-commerce approach. And we feel it as well. People are looking for, like the omni-channel or let's say unified channel of experience when, let's say in the lockdown, you couldn't reach anyone. People were scared, it was like in those moments where people were really, or businesses were actually taking the opportunity and saying, hey, my offices are closed, but at least on social media, I would have someone responding, or I would have a live chat on my website that would make so much more trust in people who have probably ordered just in order to, be human or have that factor of trust, what you said, Annie, as well. So we've seen the number of chatbot as technology, social tools as in just a communicator, not of course replacing the personal experience, but giving it so much more of a trust to their clients. I think that was a big win, what I can confirm from what we've seen and implemented also a lot.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, it's like we talked about this before too, but it's like, yeah, customer service is really important. Hopefully being able to, for your brand to be able to connect with your customers when they need it and before things really escalate, I think is also really important, which makes sense, right? Tools like chatbot and things like that. Dan, anything from your end and any tools that you've seen to be really helpful?
I think it was interesting to see the innovation that Shopify were promoting through the challenge for app developers, and I think there were some really interesting solutions. So one thing, for example, is if you are a restaurant business and you then want to start doing home delivery, you've never done delivery before. So there was an app that was created which would help a restaurant to plan the delivery route and do it in the most efficient way. And I thought that was such genius because, to apply that level of innovation and to be able to help a restaurateur to be able to efficiently manage their delivery schedule was really good. And I think that was really pleasing to see that out of the adversity, there were some great solutions that were scoped. So I think for me, it's not even a specific tool, it's the mindset that people have applied to the situation to find solutions to challenges we never expected we would face. And I think that whole cultural approach has really been something that everyone in the Shopify ecosystem should be really proud of, really. I think we've all had to be extremely adaptable and extremely flexible and be able to throw the rule book out at times to create solutions. Because at the end of the day, what's at stake are people's livelihoods, and it's the jobs and the economies and the communities we're supporting through, hopefully people will be able to look back and say we all played our part. And I'm very grateful to the people in my team and colleagues within Shopify and the wider ecosystem for the support that everyone's given each other, because there have been some times where it's been extremely challenging, but we've pulled together and hopefully done the best for our clients, which is what it's about.
For sure. Yeah. And, we wouldn't be here none of us would be in this industry if we didn't have all these businesses that wanted to go online and wanted to explore different revenue avenues for their business. So yeah, and I think with that, I think we are at time. Robin, do you want to add any extra thoughts, last thoughts for this before I close it out?
No, other than just to reiterate what both Julia and Dan said, I think that it's forced people to look at things differently. I mean, we see a lot of companies struggling with their product, quality of their product data, which is critical. And also thanking Shopify and thanking the extended community as well. I mean, we've had some phenomenal input and phenomenal cooperation, and I hope that that's the kind of stuff that we keep, because to Dan's point, that makes the community so much stronger, and it makes the merchants stronger as well.
Agreed. All right, we are at our we're a little bit over, we're at 22 minutes, but thank you so much to all of our panelists for giving your thoughts on our topic today. It was a really great conversation, and thank you to everyone that took the time to attend. This will be recorded and sent to you. But with that, I close with us, and yeah, we'll see you next time.